Before we get to the video, if you struggle with a social media addiction and you find yourself spending far too much time on your phone and you don't know how to quit, I have a free community with a free, completely free. There's a link for it in the description where there's a course and a community of people who are all quitting social media that will help you to be able to quit social media. And with that being said, let me tell you a story. It's June of 2022. I'm 16 years old, standing on the street in the blistering sun, doing something I know I shouldn't be. I can feel eyes all staring at me while I stand here, and I can feel them looking at me, but I can't actually see where they are. My heart is racing faster and faster, and I feel like my feet are literally stuck to the ground. I can feel the sweat beating down the side of my head, and I genuinely feel like I am legitimately about to collapse. I managed to stumble over to a table where I can actually brace myself and just kind of recover and just take in this moment and actually regain some form of energy. Once I've regained some form of life inside myself, I take a deep breath and I keep going. This was when I was 1 kilometer out of finishing my first full marathon. The thing was, this marathon was hard enough to run, but it also just so happened it was 36 degrees Celsius outside, and it was the hottest day that it would be all year. And the thing is, I'm from Canada, so when I was training for this marathon, I was running in the snow all the time, and the actual marathon was in the summer, so I was not used to running in the heat. It actually was so hot that what the organization who was putting on the marathon ended up doing was canceling it halfway through. They just canceled the whole thing so they didn't get sued by anyone who collapsed because of the heat. And so what happened was all the police and everyone who was like most of the volunteers, not everyone at the water stations, but the people who were like directing traffic and making sure everyone was staying on the same path, they all left and there was no support. And the thing was, I didn't know the marathon was canceled until I was about 30 kilometers in, and at that point there was nothing I could do. I wasn't going to walk back the other way, so I figured I might as well just finish the marathon because I put all this training in, and even though it was canceled, I only had about 12 more kilometers to go until I could finish it. And at the time, finishing this marathon was going to be pretty much the biggest accomplishment in my life at the time. It was something that I'd spent pretty much a year preparing for, and oftentimes when I was thinking of how it would feel to finish that marathon and get across that finish line, I expected this big moment and to have this amazing feeling and this big rush of adrenaline when I crossed that finish line and feeling amazing from all the training I'd put in and everything. But in reality, when I ran across that finish line, things kind of felt pretty normal. Like, one, I was just so tired, so I was kind of out of it and I just wanted to, lay down and recover, but it didn't really feel all that special. It was nice, obviously, to be done, and it just was kind of underwhelming to say the least. But the thing was, after the marathon was over and I got some water and some food in me and everything, when I was in the bathroom back at the hotel room I was staying at and just about to have a shower, I just took some moments just to stare in the mirror and just like reflect on what I'd done in that past year of training for this thing. And even though that moment wasn't quite as special as I expected it to be, I couldn't help but feel this sense of pride at just staring at myself in the mirror for completing all this time and all this effort and seeing how it had paid off, because I ran the time I was trying to get even in that heat, and just seeing my physique and how lean I was and how just athletic I looked, and just how I felt in general for being able to accomplish this thing that most people will never even come close to accomplishing in their life. And this is only one example of the addiction that I developed after I quit social media. When I was 14, I quit social media just to develop a new addiction, and that was the addiction to progress. You see, when I was growing up and just when I was a kid, I was always passionate about sports and I always worked hard at everything I did. But I always felt that I was, especially in middle school, when I was spending most of my time on social media, honestly, I always felt that there was something missing and I was holding myself back, and I was putting far too much time into things that didn't really matter to me, like just watching Netflix and just scrolling on Instagram and YouTube and just spending all this time consuming so many things that weren't really benefiting my life and leading me to become the person that I wanted to be. And once I finally got off social media, and it was really when I started to pick up weightlifting, the addiction that I had to social media was able to be replaced by the addiction towards making progress to things that really mattered to me. The thing is, nowadays, even though some people don't say it's an addiction, we are all addicted to our phones. Every generation. We got kids who are like just out of the womb watching iPads and like on TikTok and stuff. We got our generation who is always on our phones, on TikTok and YouTube and all these social medias. Our parents are always scrolling on Facebook, even our grandparents are always on their phones. Everyone is addicted to their phones, and we live life, and a lot of people spend a lot of their time just staring into a screen. And even though they don't want to be there in that moment, they still do it anyway, because it's just so addictive to our brain and just is so good at capturing our attention that we don't know any different than just being on it all the time. And the thing is, our brain is wired to make progress. We have hormones and stuff like dopamine, which is our hormone that makes us motivated to do stuff and seek out to make progress in things. We are biologically meant to do that. It's what has allowed us to survive. When we were cavemen and stuff, we needed that motivation to go out and hunt or build shelter or, do all these primal things that we have to do. But what social media and a lot of modern things allow us to do is get that dopamine and make us feel good without actually having to make progress. But it's not a real version of what actually gives us fulfillment. It's just this coping mechanism that allows us to feel good. But once it's done and once you put your phone down, you feel worse about what you've been doing, because you've been wasting time. You've been procrastinating on that homework essay you should be writing right now, but you still can't bring yourself to do it. And the only reason that I was able to quit social media was because I found something that replaced that pleasure and replaced that time with something I genuinely loved, and that was weightlifting. I was playing basketball a lot at the time, and I was about like 5'2" and maybe like 90 pounds soaking wet, and I wanted to lift weights to get bigger. And it just so happened at that time that I finally hit puberty after like being the smallest kid in my class for like the longest time, and I started to grow and I really saw progress. I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually gaining weight, I'm actually getting bigger. And that flipped that switch, and it's like, I can actually make progress at this. Then that started to make me more motivated to practice music and write songs and do all these things, and I started to actually make progress in life, meet new people, develop my social circle a lot more. And social media wasn't even on my mind. I didn't need that because I was living such a fulfilled life, doing things that genuinely brought me that fulfillment, but in the real way, not just some half-assed version of it on my phone staring into a screen while I have a blank face and don't even enjoy doing it. I was doing things that was genuinely like impacting my life in a positive way, and I became addicted to real life, and I didn't even need social media anymore. And there are some people who can balance social media and still have that motivation to go do things in real life, still work really hard when they spend some time on social media. But I wasn't one of those people. I've never been good at balancing things. I always want to be doing something, and it's either I always do things that I know are productive for myself, or I was just doing a bunch of bad things. And I've been at both places in my life. A lot more time spent here, but also a decent amount of time spent here. And I can't balance things like that. I need to either be on the far right or the far left, and that's what's allowed me to achieve a lot of the things that I wanted to do in life, like releasing albums and traveling and lifting weights and developing a pretty good physique and playing live gigs and running and all these different things. And it's only because it's only because of the fulfillment I got at those things, because motivation is only so temporary. You can't wait for motivation to strike you all the time to go do those hard things and to keep pursuing things and do things when they actually get difficult. But if you have passion for what you do, then you'll be able to develop discipline and not necessarily always need motivation, because those hard days you'll be able to get through them. And because you love it, there's going to be those moments where you enjoy it so much, and the majority of the time you do enjoy it, so you're able to get through those hard things because the payoff is so much more. Even though it may not seem like it, your dream life and accomplishing all these things that you have in your mind are really not all that far away. It just comes from making a few changes in your everyday life, and you'll be on the right path, and you'll be wherever you want to get to before you know it. With that being said, my name is Colby Wallace. I'm an 18-year-old artist from Canada, currently traveling in Australia. And if you like these videos and you like to hear me talk about self-improvement and how to actually improve your life and want to hear some of my original music, you might as well subscribe. Not sure what you're waiting for. It's a win for you. It's a win for me. And just really helps the channel out, and I'd love to see the support. If you want to join our free community, like I mentioned in the beginning, where you can delete social media and break away from your phone addiction completely for free, there's a free link for that in the description. If you want to hear my original music, also in the description. And with that being said, never stop creating, my friend, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.